The 3 p.m. voting session. That is item 1A, the recognizing of Chief Ron Harrison and the naming of the Fire Training Tower Center. That's being moved to 3. As is the proclamation for Gold Month for Childhood and Cancer Awareness. That is also being requested by the families that are receiving that to be moved to the 3 o'clock, which very expeditiously takes us to item C, which is our TML Municipal Achievement Award. Mr. Fivas, I believe you have the award and possibly some comments about the great work of Main Street and our downtown revitalization.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. We got an award in August. We haven't had a chance for the City Council to be a part of this. While it's a smaller award, it has huge impact. And if I can have Mayor Brooks and Sharon Marr and Corey come on down.
You come in short and you come in small.
And we want to take a few minutes that the Tennessee Municipal League gave the city the excellence in downtown revitalization and historic preservation, and basically it that they looked at our body of work, redevelopment of some of the historic buildings, some of the things that are going on, and they thought that we were doing some amazing things. And at this point, I want to hand it over to Mayor, and you can go over some of the things, and then Sharon and Corey, if they have comments, and then we'll take a picture with the little award.
Thank you. Sharon, I'll let you hold it. Council, I just wanted to say I was thankful to be able to go to Gatlinburg to the TML conference and receive this on your behalf. And I made sure that everyone knew that it was the support and the votes from this city council for downtown redevelopment and revitalization that made this award possible, and the incredible hard work of our city staff and the cooperation and partnership with Main Street. Sharon will tell you about all the great things. If you did not get a chance to join us this past Thursday night for the Dine Around Downtown, it might have been one of my most favorite events we've ever had. Not just great food, but incredible weather, and the city turned out in force. Musicians on the street corners and food vendors, and it just was a fantastic showing the vitalization of our downtown. It was just a great event, so I'll turn it over to Sharon.
Well, this award certainly goes to this council for making the hard decisions to provide the economic development tools that these buildings can be redeveloped. We all know it's challenging. It takes a lot of money to pour into these buildings to bring them up to speed. And last Monday, the Main Street members toured Sandham Mill, and it's amazing what they've done in that building. I was in there a few times prior to it, but it's amazing what they've done with those 52 apartments. And if you haven't been to it, you probably have, but if you haven't, they're all just a little bit different. And you have some that have giant windows, some that have one window that may be looking out at the train tracks. But it's really amazing. So it's going to be a great boost to downtown, because we know that downtown living is what drives everything else. It drives the restaurants, it drives the retail. People on the streets, feet on the street at night, in a positive way, is what makes everything else start to really grow. And as Mayor Brooks mentioned, Main Street has hosted over 30 events this year, or will have by the end of the year, bringing more than 65,000 people downtown. With your support, the Hot Song Festival was a big success, a new event last summer. This was the first time we've added a second downtown Dine Around. And then also we had a Mutt Strut a week ago Thursday to help SPCA and raising money with some of their programs. So 40 dogs, if it was 40, I always say if 40 people at an event, it doesn't sound like a lot, but 40 dogs is a lot of things. It is a lot of the event. So, but it was a great time, and they strutted around the square, and it was wonderful. So I'm going to show you just a short minute-and-a-half video that came from the downtown Dine Around. It was done by Muse Mind Studio, which is opening in the Craig Miles Hall. Next week we'll be receiving an invitation to a grand opening event there. Micro event space, and also just did an amazing job unrequested. They just created this little video.
Roast beef was so good.
It was 13 locations, and it was so great there, and it was a great event. And the final thing, in regards to the restaurants, I talked a couple of weeks ago about the Restaurant and Resiliency Grant that we got through the Tennessee Community Development Department with Proof Incubator. And that kicked off earlier this month with a workshop with the restaurants, and it is going really well. They're now in the phase of doing one-on-one hours with any restaurants who need them. It's a 12-month engagement. So any of these folks who need extra support, they can certainly reach out through this grant to Proof Incubator. So lots of great things, and thank you so much for what you do to support downtown. It's much appreciated.
Thank you, Ms. Sharon.
Hey, Sharon and Matt and Corey and the mayor, let's take a quick picture.
Let's take it up here in front of the council, because it was their voting that made all this possible. I don't get a vote. You get a vote, Vice Mayor?
That's right. Scott has a legitimate
You look great.
What do you say, man?
Yeah. School board member. Can you see Dale behind me?
Yeah, I'll move over here to the side.
Maybe you want to grab one? Make me look tall.
On three. 1, 2, 3. One more.
Corey, you get a raise. Thank you for that.
Congratulations, Sharon.
All right. Congratulations again, Ms. Sharon and Main Street, and thank you, council, for your support of Main Street. Takes us to item D under our special presentations, and Ms. Shauna, are you? If you could, although we know who you are, if you could state your name and.
Yes, my name is Shauna Stopp. I'm with United Way of the Ocoee region. I'm our Director of Community Impact, but today I am also representing the Bradley County Housing Coalition. Here in Cleveland, we've been around. We first assembled in 2014. We are a group of 30 organizations with about 50 individuals from the continuum of care from housing. So from homelessness to housing. And I definitely want to thank you for the time that you've given me to speak. I just want to share a little bit of context about that organization, just with some of the housing and homelessness needs that have been present, but have definitely surfaced, and we're kind of working together to kind of figure those out. I also want to thank Ms. Marsha McKenzie for attending our Housing Coalition meetings. She's been a huge part of those, as well as Manager Fivas, Corey Dybel, and all of those who have been just interested in this issue and working alongside of us. Like I said, we launched in 2014, and most recently we've been looking at, again, from homelessness to housing. And this last point in time count, which looks at how many people are experiencing homelessness at one time, we saw a 114% increase in homelessness, which our organizations helped to put on this survey. We also know that 44.2% of our Cleveland residents are considered cost burden. That was actually before the pandemic, so we're interested to see how those numbers as they come out have raised. But as we've been doing this work, like you all, we have also seen an increase in mental health and substance abuse needs, along with the need for housing and different housing options. And so 2 subcommittees that we have split off into is our health and habitability, which is looking at, how do we address issues of health and habitability on the housing we currently have, and then housing choice best practices, which is looking at how do we meet the needs and serve all the different housing needs we may see in our community. And then of course we've seen, like I mentioned, over the past couple of years, just seeing the increase of mental health and substance abuse that come alongside that. So with the action plan that you have talked about, we just want to thank you so much for taking a look at these issues, and we really feel that as a coalition, we we feel it's our role to help with that and to partner. And we've been really thankful to get to meet with members of CPD, specifically E.B. West, and Nathan Hartwig, Luke Hanna, and Chief Gibson as well, to kind of see what is our role to help support in this plan, whether that's looking at helping with some outreach, or just being good partners to help elevate that. And that's really what I'm here for. I want to just give a little bit of context for who we are, what we're doing, some of the issues and solutions that we're looking at, and that we hope to look at and partner with alongside you. And again, just want to thank you for your effort that you are taking into looking at the complexities of this issue, and of course the complexities of solutions that again we hope to be a part of. And as we continue meeting with members of CPD and the city, we have some meetings planned here shortly. Just looking forward to how we may be able to be part of that solution with you as a coalition, and then hope to be able to maybe bring some of that more to the council in the future. So
That's great.
That's all.
Ms. Shauna,
Are there any questions?
well, I was going to say, before we ask the council for questions, I think you have some guests from United Way. I would love for...
I do. Behind me here we have Taylor Hill, who is our COE Connect specialist. So as people are calling in with rental needs, utilities needs, or really any other connection, she's there. And then our president and CEO, Stephanie Linkus, behind me as well. And then we had someone from the Housing Coalition. I want to point out Dustin Tommy, who's a huge part of that with City Build. So
Awesome.
thank you. And
So the Ocoee Connect card I got with my United Way form.
yes, sir.
Ms. Hill is the other end of that
She's
card.
it. She's the other end of that card.
And
She
the
comes around as well, so-
award-winning CEO, Stephanie Linkus, is with you as
Absolutely.
well.
10 out of 10.
Great. Any questions from the council? I would like to thank, as Ms. Shauna did, Councilwoman McKenzie for being so attentive to the needs of the Housing Coalition and attending all the meetings on our behalf and reporting back to us every time she does so. So I'm very, very grateful for that connectivity, and thank you. Any other questions or comments from the council?
I would just like to say that this committee works very hard. They've been working for some time on the homeless issue and the affordable housing issues. And they have a lot of good information that I think will be a big help to us in the future.
Great.
Thank
And
you,
again,
Shauna.
we just want to be a resource, and that's why we're here, and hopefully have a good partnership down the road to help with this.
Thank you. All right, that takes us to our opportunity for public comments. I only have one member of the audience, Mr. James Morgan, that has sent a letter, and it has been copied to all members of the council, the comments that he has. Mr. Morgan, although I have introduced you, if you would state your name, and we're happy to hear from you. Thank you for coming.
Good afternoon. I'm James Morgan, long life resident of Cleveland and Bradley County. And my concern is that seems like the Inman Street, Sheila Street side of Cleveland, Tennessee have been forgotten. And out of my own resources, I purchased a piece of property, and I'm wanting to know if there's any type of way that we can get some help, some additional help to help us in this venture. And there's a vacant property all around that area there. Some of it is private owned, and I would say that I know that there's one piece that the city owned that I had made comments about purchasing. And the property was lost for over 40 years. And nobody knew that they even owned that property. So when I came up here and talked to the lady downstairs, she had to get in touch with the city lawyer and all of that stuff there. She said give her a few days and she'd get back with me. So she did. And the property is joining my property and the bond property, which the city owns the property in between. 53.5 wide and 127 deep. And I was asked $13,500 for that property. And I thought that was outrageous. I brought it to your attention that, you know, that what can we work out? And that was out of my wheelhouse. I just put it aside. But I'm still endeavoring to build a building on this property for our community. We don't have any place to meet. It's independent from churches schools or anything like that. And in that neighborhood, we want to counsel drug addicts, alcoholics, you know, and help people. My wife, she's a minister, and she's actually ministered at the prisons for several years. And all the people, the ladies over there, wants to know how they can, you know, get into some type of program to help them out of the situation that they're in. And these are the things that I'm concerned about, and I'm wanting to know if there's any kind of financial help that we could get, you know, to build this building, you know, to help that area.
Certainly. So, Mr. Morgan, I'm very grateful for your letter, and I'm very grateful that you came to speak with us today. There are two individuals that I'm going to connect you with. One is Mr. Robert Varnell about the city planning and the city property that you mentioned. And the second one, she's not here. It's Kathy Andrews in our grant office. The city has an office of grants to see if there are grant opportunities available for small. I know there's small business grants and some other things that she has a great keen awareness of that. As the part-time mayor, I don't always get all of that education on the grant process. So I will connect those two people with you and give them a copy of your letter and ask them to reach out to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Morgan. Are there any other comments from members of the audience? All right. That will take us to item number, it's like church. I see that hand in the back.
If I may, just a real brief.
Certainly. Although we know who you are, if you'll please step to the podium and identify yourself for the record.
Hey, my name is Dustin Tommy with City Fields. We are going to be doing an event on November the 12th.
Lawnmower race.
Not a lawnmower race. It's a celebration of some of the work that we've accomplished as our organization, and looking forward to the future. But it's the evening of November 12th, and we wanted to invite all the council members and the mayor, and many of you in this audience today, but I don't have the invitations in my hand right now, but I wanted to put it out there.
Save the date.
Invitation is forthcoming. But
Save the
6
date.
p.m.,
Okay.
Save the date.
6 p.m. November, and will that be at the City Fields location, the Blythe?
It'll be in invitation. It's going to be at a special location.
Special location, all right. Thank you, Mr. Tomney. We're always happy to hear from our friends at City Fields. All right, that takes us to item number 2, which is the city manager's report. It looks rather positive and extensive. Mr. Fivas, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Our first item is to talk a little bit about our some downtown planning. Specifically, as you know, the United States Department of Transportation awarded Cleveland a RAISE grant to do some planning for a new commercial corridor through the downtown area. You guys are aware of that and voted on those items. That we are, a couple weeks ago, we hosted representatives from Federal Highway or USDOT, it's kind of the same thing, and some TDOT folks on going over many of the nuances of that RAISE grant, and they're working on getting a consultant to begin that probably within the next couple months in earnest. Part of that was that they asked us to look at, there's some new grant money available for rail corridor improvements to eliminate conflicts between cars and rail. We found a grant that really meets a lot of our expectations. It's on the business for today for you guys to consider and to look at. But there's a lot of different elements in this project. It's revitalizing not only the downtown, it's revitalizing a lot of the old Whirlpool area. There's some College Hill areas that have impact, Blythe Oldfield area. And it essentially it would go all down and it would impact the whole corridor down to Inman Street, or Key Street, on that, and there's just a lot of dynamics that we feel that we have a real shot at getting some opportunities with this rail grant that potentially, and we wouldn't necessarily pay the match. We would want DOT, since you're fixing their problem that they have at Inman Street. But overall, I want to spend a few minutes. Greg Thomas has put together a very interesting proposal or presentation rather, that goes through the history of this corridor and why this project is important for the downtown, and want to allow Greg the opportunity to explain some of the research he's done, and as the point person for this project to outline the city's interest in that. With that, Greg, it is all yours. Thank you, a little quicker, and certainly if you have any questions, feel free to stop them in mid-sentence and ask questions.
Okay, so yeah, as Joe said, we did have an opportunity to have in the federal officials, state TDOT officials, local staff, and others, also members of a working group, which I'll get to in a little bit, which is very important to this process. A lot of local institutions involved in that.
John Lee told me you put a swimming pool in, so I came by and checked it out from my car. Brendan and I. It's nice. It's a little plunge pool.
50 slots.
Yeah, it's only 14 inches. Yeah, that's all you need. You gotta get in there and exercise.
It doesn't seem to be.
Excuse me?
It's the two big areas, right?
I understand. I understand.
Oh, there we go. All right, sorry about that. So this is basically the corridor. It connects via Linden Avenue, and it connects via 3rd Street and 6th Street over to Wildwood Avenue. And one of the big question areas is how exactly are we to make that connection on the east side? And that's part of this planning process. But we will go down the 3rd Street corridor, crossing the railroad through the Whirlpool site with a bridge, a very key component of this. And as we travel down 3rd Street, which is State Route 40, the proposal is to swing back over to Inman Street, where we will again tie in with other state routes and with the connection on out Harrison Pike, which will be very important in the future. Why a crosstown connector? First of all, Inman Street can't practically be widened in the downtown core to accommodate sidewalks and turn lanes. 1970 transportation plan recommended 80 feet of right-of-way and 4 lanes all the way from what was going to be APD 40, it wasn't there yet, all the way out Harrison Pike to where it crosses the interstate. But 1970 right-of-way widths were 60 feet or less in most of the CBD. Inman had 4 lanes only west of Broad Street, and that was compressed in 60 to 66 feet. So basically, in the 70s, what we were left with was putting 4 lanes in where you had about 60 feet of right-of-way or a little bit more. And then east of the railroad, that right-of-way shrunk down to like 45 feet in places. But the real widening work took place west of the railroad, which you see there in that picture. Why a crosstown connector? The twin problems of Inman Street underpass, low height and flooding, can't practically be removed. It's in a hole. and there's not really much you can do about that. Through traffic can't go around the CBD. That's been a problem that's been talked about for decades. It needs to go down Inman Street in our current configuration, but is that the best thing? Well, maybe not if you want to do a pedestrian-friendly downtown and facilitate businesses that are there. That map to the left is from the 50s. It shows the traffic flow. That's pre-Keith Street and pre-extension of Inman Street. On the right is the Major Transportation Plan map from 1970. And what you see in the middle there is what was called the inner loop, an idea that was really born earlier than that plan, but the idea basically would have involved two bridges, one at 3rd Street and crossing over and going down to East Street and coming north of Inman Street and doubling back along Central Avenue. And as I said, Inman Street was proposed to be widened to 80 feet. So the other thing this crosstown connector will do in pulling it back to Inman Street on the west end is tie the state routes together to an extent they've never been tied together. If you look at State Route 40 down here on the lower part, that made sense 60, 70 years ago or more when Lee Highway was the route into town. That was pre-Keith Street. But now what we would like to do is have all that converge up here and be able to cross onto Harrison Pike, State Route 312, which at some point there will be some sort of connectivity to the interstate out there. And it's a principal route into downtown. And by connectivity, it could occur down at exit 20, it could occur at a future interchange. We don't know yet. Unprecedented opportunity to bridge the railroad with minimal impact. All that stuff from 90+ acres has been removed, which means you can put a bridge in there and associated roadway improvements without impacting buildings that people are in. So it creates, in the blue area you see there is kind of the last thing that was done over there, the realignment of 3rd Street and Linden Avenue that gets you out to Wildwood. What does the crosstown connector connect? State Route 74, which is on Wildwood Avenue, and it's also on Inman Street, and comes up McCoy Street. US 64, water level highway. Connect across the railroad with a new bridge and evaluate a system of downtown crossings. Why are we looking at the crossings? We're looking at the crossings because with new residential development, there's a lot of concern about noise from the railroad downtown. Evaluating the crossings, if we bridge it here, that crossing goes away. But a train under normal circumstances is mandated to blow its horn. Well, we got like 5 crossings in close succession downtown. What can we do with some of the other crossings, in addition to the one we're talking about closing at 3rd Street, to lower the level of that noise and make it more hospitable downtown? So that's why we're looking at the other crossings. Connect State Route 40, which again is 3rd Street, and connect US 11, SR2, 312, that's Harrison Pike and Keith Street. Why the focus on 3rd Street? Well, the short answer is it's the absolute best place we've got to cross the railroad, because you've got all that open space for one thing, but it also straight line distances to other things downtown that a new corridor would need to connect to. And it gives us an opportunity to reclaim a brownfield area for economic and environmental uses, which is all part of the downtown So the challenge, and by that I mean the challenge of preparing the RAISE grant for the plan and also other funding applications going forward, produce a competitive RAISE proposal that meets local needs in a project scope that meets multiple grant criteria that are reflected in plan goals. Now, to turn that in, that all had to be done in 30 pages, which was a tall order. But one of those goals would be safety. Grade crossing hazards reduced at 3rd Street, reduce potential emergency response delay, reduce temptations for drivers to go around or to try to drive through a flooded underpass, which happens. Provide safe rail crossing for pedestrians and cyclists, reduce property damage to overheight vehicles. Environmental sustainability, and this gets back to a lot of the equity issues, really. It's people east of the railroad, primarily low-income people that have to come west of the railroad and use those facilities for employment, shopping, services, and so forth. Increase the transportation efficient design. A lot of the environmental problems with transportation come from things like tire dust and things like that, and idling engines. And the more of that kind of stuff we can reduce, the less of those pollutants go into the environment. Encourage fiscally responsible land use with less interruption of the downtown street grid. We've got a clear path here to build a roadway, which that hardly ever happens. It's not completely clear, but in a big area it is. Support zero emission vehicle use, more bikes and pads, and support various sustainability measures. Quality of life, transportation choice and equity. We've got neighborhoods over there where the vehicle ownership is very low. They need the bike and ped type options. Improve connectivity to jobs, healthcare, and other critical destinations, and proactively address barriers to racial equity. That was a big part of this grant application, part of the criteria, and it will be part of anything that we do to fund the actual improvements. So part of that gets us into why this working group and how are we working with them and how are we looking at some of the existing urban renewal area and that impact, and we'll get to that in a second. Economic competitiveness and state of good repair. We'll have new assets down there if we build this, and a lot of what we got is very old and not in great shape. So that just sort of recaps what we're doing and why. The plan process, and again, there'll be a contract soon to analyze characteristics, evaluate transportation systems, operational and safety analysis, and so forth. Here's sort of what's next. Complete the contract, and that's really between TDOT and USDOT. It's a contract between them. TDOT will be managing that contract, and we'll be working on it alongside them. The next thing is submit an application, and this is what's in your packet today, to USDOT for a rail crossing elimination grant. This would address the bridge portion of this crosstown connector. That's the most expensive single element of it, but it's kind of what makes it all tick. And then carry out parallel redevelopment and revitalization plan processes for areas affected by the connector, including College Hill, and all your downtown planning, all of that kind of thing, and involve the city, neighborhood, nonprofits, and other stakeholders. And that's in part the representatives on this working group who've already been giving input. So here comes the cool stuff, I think. That's 1900, that's our underpass.
Still is.
So, and
Sadly.
they actually reported a problem with congestion of horses and wagons. So this has been going on for a long time. And that was built in, the area was called Crow's Crossing. And as you can see, it's like 1 lane wide there. And thanks to the history branch, we have a picture.
That's astonishing to me.
So what's happened since 1900? Well, a bunch of stuff. Industrialization, population growth, urbanization, movement of the city's black population to what became the third ward. I guess after it was the sixth ward, before we got rid of wards altogether. But anyway, that's basically everything east of the railroad that was in the city from the early 1900s onward. But what you had was an urbanization of that population because there were jobs available, jobs that were open to those people, because not all jobs were open to all people. There was a school, the community resources, there was the impacts of segregation and so forth. That's where you had to live. Didn't have the option to move to West Cleveland, even if you had money. And there was also a transportation system expansion. There was the advent of federal funding for state highways, the state highway department about 1917 or so. All of that stuff began to work in downtown Cleveland. So this is a Sanborn fire insurance map from 1912. And if you look down at the bottom, you can see the section of East Cleveland that we're kind of focusing on here. And what I want to point out is there's not a lot built on that. That runs between Bible Street and Berry Street. Now, if we change the dial here and go up to 1950, there's been a lot of infill development there. A lot of it's right on the street, but if you look, not necessarily on this map, but this and the city directories and so forth, you see the kinds of things that, like Vice Mayor Johnson has talked about in the past with a number of restaurants, a shoe store, other kinds of businesses in this area. So that's sort of what prevailed there up until a little past 1970. This is a shot from 1935. You see going out Inman Street and down Wildwood. I think that's Allen School up to the right and College Hill School up to the left there. A little closer in on the project area, you see the narrowness of the underpass there that traffic would have to contend with. Well, here they are contending with it in 1971. This is traffic coming into downtown, westbound traffic and some going out. This looks east on Inman Street from basically the top of the railroad. And there we are also on the top of the railroad looking west into downtown Cleveland. And here's that line of cars going through the underpass. So something had to give there, obviously. Well, this is an artist's conception of what would happen and this all came out of that urban renewal project and a project that the city did with TDOT. Basically, 2 lanes of traffic in each way. They looked at a couple of different proposals there, including one that would have actually elevated the railroad, but that didn't happen. But we did get 2 lanes in each direction. So, urban renewal and related events. Federally funded program began in the 50s. You had to have a study that determined there were blighting conditions. You had to identify what those were, and you had a plan. Cleveland submitted a paperwork for all that starting in 1966. I think that date's sort of interesting because also at that same time, I believe that was when College Hill School burned, and about the time of the school integration plan in Cleveland. So you had a lot of things sort of coming together. You had the loss of a school, but then you had new schools that people could go to that couldn't before go to those schools. Then you've got Magic Chef that's continuing to grow. They need better access across the railroad, and they know that APB 40 is coming, and they probably want to get to that. So you've got a lot of things converging here about the time of this urban renewal planning effort. Sanders and Associates in Atlanta did an analysis of lighting conditions by neighborhood for Cleveland in 1969. And they did other planning documents. They did a transportation plan. They did a zoning ordinance, subdivision regulations, a whole bunch of stuff. The Sanders analysis found that the blighting conditions were most severe in neighborhood 3, which is basically the 3rd ward, including College Hill. They examined a variety of conditions, including fire data, utilities, building conditions, and so forth. They found that substandard housing was most concentrated in neighborhood 3, and they proposed a treatment for each block in town, with redevelopment being the most drastic. Redevelopment means you tear it down, acquire it, tear it down, sell it for something else. This is their recommended treatment. That bright red stuff you see there, that's redevelopment. And you see the path of you see where the railroad is there. Basically, the 3rd ward, if you look at it that way, it was really going to get impacted by redevelopment if the city did everything according to that plan. Well, they didn't, but they did an area that looks something like that. And it comes from the underpass, which was part of urban renewal, and out Inman Street to East Street. Takes out a lot of the building structure that's on the frontage there, and then ducks south and basically creates what is Howard Circle. And that's the Wildwood Avenue area. I think the numbered properties there are the ones that were disposed of by the city. Those are ones on Inman Street, north and south. And then that's Howard Circle. So all of that's an issue. It's not just an issue for Cleveland, it's an issue in other places. This is a study done by the University of Richmond, and it's basically displacements by urban renewal. Both white and minority residents are represented there. So Cleveland experienced something similar to a lot of other communities, but the fact of the matter is it kind of wound up in a lot of cases with stuff being torn down without things going back. And so the Bradley County NAACP observed that urban renewal efforts in the 1970s cut this neighborhood off, being College Hill, or our neighborhood 3, from easy access to downtown Cleveland, displacing black-owned businesses without providing promised street and road improvements. The creation of the bridge and the connector route would address some of the concerns that have burdened this community for the past 60 years. The pedestrian improvements and routing around the problematic railroad underpass would provide much easier access for College Hill residents to the economic and social activities of downtown Cleveland. So what can be done to make this so. And I mentioned the working group, and that includes representatives from New Cars, the Neighbors United for Counseling and Referral Services, the Historic Black College Hill Neighborhood Association, City Fields, representatives of the Hispanic community. Also, we've had assistance from Lee University and Cleveland State Community College, public health representatives, and others. And the idea is to help lay groundwork for a planning process for revitalization that does good and not harm while getting this roadway completed. So the equity planning framework addresses these things: housing choice, transportation choice, capacity building, heritage preservation, stewardship, entrepreneurship, sustainable wealth creation, civic engagement, and from good to great with planning and design. It's a wraparound, really, extending beyond the direct raised subject matter of transportation and addressing these revitalization planning areas. And City Fields is a key player in all of that. They're hosting our working group meetings. They're moving their center of operations into College Hill, and their fields, the areas they work in, physical revitalization, economic development, leadership development, neighborhood safety, and social revitalization are all part of what we need to do. They have a vision statement including a number of things: 15 new or renovated houses a year, a grocery store in the College Hill or nearby area, and a variety of other things. But this gets us back to the final slide, and I want to just point out here that box and the little pink area in there, that's the urban renewal area. And that green area, green box, is the decision area. That's where we've got to make decisions about alignment and that kind of thing, and what would most facilitate economic revitalization in that College Hill, Blythe Oldville area where those come together. So that's kind of it for me. Anything I can answer?
Thank you, Mr. Thomas, for that incredible presentation, as well as those pictures. That's just, although I've seen them before, it's still astonishing to see how much has changed yet how much has remained the same. Any comments or questions from the council? Councilman Webb.
Mayor, I would just ask, Greg, could you email that presentation to all of us?
Sure.
Be very helpful. Some of it was a little difficult to see, obviously. And
Okay.
that would be a good review for us.
Mr. Mayor.
Vice Mayor, you're recognized.
Yes, sir. I grew up in that area, and I remember specifically 1970s, when urban renewal came through and bought out a lot of business. People won't believe it when you look at it today, and if you didn't see it, you would never believe what it used to be. There were all kinds of businesses in East Cleveland, in that area. And urban renewal came through in the 70s, and they bought out most of the businesses. I mean, anything that you see on this side of the railroad track, they had it over there in East Cleveland, especially on Inman Street. My grandmother owned a restaurant there, and she started her restaurant there in 1940. But they bought her out. Urban renewal did, because they said they were going to make it 4-lane all the way through, and they bought out all the businesses. I'm talking about bake shop, grocery stores, dry cleaners, anything that you can think of, they had. And there were a lot of promises made to those people that sold out. And to me, on the inside looking out, really and truly, the government has never really kept their deal, their promises. I think that this time, Greg, and you did a great presentation, and you're right on course with everything. I think this time, Mr. Mayor, we owe it to the citizens of Cleveland, especially in East Cleveland and South Cleveland, to really pay attention to the redevelopment that's going on and try to help that area. We got a gentleman that's in our meeting this morning, James Morgan, and he's talking about helping some special needs with homeless people and a lot of people that grew up in those conditions. You know, now and then, James, you can do it anywhere. Anywhere in Cleveland that you want to go for what you're trying to do. But I know you want to get close to the people because a lot of people don't have transportation. Back when I was young, we had buses that ran all through there. I got to travel all over town when I was 12 years old, getting on the bus, pay 5 cents and go everywhere, all over Cleveland. I really got to see the city of Cleveland. But we need to, especially gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen on the council, pay attention to the development that's going on right now and see if we can do something special in the East Cleveland and South Cleveland area. We're already doing a lot. Sidewalks, streets, we finally beginning to do what we should do and should have done back then. But now, we really need to pay attention to it and make sure we do it right this time. So thank you for your presentation, Greg. There was a lot more I could say about it because I grew up there. I went to College Hill. I graduated from College Hill High School. I worked at Maytag for 44 years. I was a superintendent at Maytag. I was a supervisor. I even got to work in the HR department. You know, I've done everything that I needed to do, but most people didn't make it through the way that I came. But this area is very special, and we got an opportunity. And that's what I look at as being an opportunity to really do what we should have done back in the 70s. And that's kept our word to help the people relocate. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Well said. Any other comments from the council? Seeing none, Mr. Thomas, thank you very much. Mr. Fivas, back to you, sir.
I want to hit on 2 points that Mr. Thomas hit in this presentation, and I want to accentuate that. There's really a couple things that are very important is for the redevelopment of having a new road structure coming down 3rd Avenue. And if you can envision essentially a new downtown corridor with buildings on each side, essentially a new downtown redevelopment opportunities, is that really adds value to economic development opportunities going down through that corridor. So I think you have to look at the pure economic benefits to doing that. And the second one is our downtown, and I think Mr. Thomas mentioned this, is that your downtown will probably never be walkable if you have that many cars going through it consecutively. And this would be that opportunity to really move the downtown corridor over one block, and then some of that vacant land and land that probably isn't hitting its highest and best value, including the Whirlpool properties, is I think that's one of the key aspects, along with what everything that Vice Mayor Johnson said and what Greg said, is there's a lot going on here that you have to really look at. And you know, what will the downtown be? You know, you saw the pictures. What I found fascinating is you saw what it was in 1900, 1950. Is what's it going to be like in 2070? And you see how things changed and completely opposite of what they are now. Is I think that's the vision that we all have to join together to figure out with other stakeholders on what will be downtown Cleveland's and the city of Cleveland's future 50 years from now, and not get stuck in the paradigm of how we're used to it right now. So think about that, and we'll be talking about this quite a bit over the next 6 to 8 months. This isn't a September 26th conversation. This is pretty much all of 2023 as we figure out how to navigate the future in downtown. Thank you for taking a moment and listening. Thank you for the presentation. He has a really, and we'll send this to you, but we have a huge volume library, a lot of these old pictures in downtown and, you know, the urban redevelopment and a lot of the history. If anyone's interested in learning more of that, let us know, and we're happy to show a lot of that to you. So, thank you. I forgot my speaker.
It's okay. I have to have one too. Dustin can just wing it.
If I didn't have my piece of paper, I was gonna go rogue. Any more on what Mr. Thomas talked about? I'm moving to the next items. Want to take a moment and go over the Spring Branch Industrial Park wetland mitigation credits. I think I saw this done here. This is probably more his, and he's here to address any questions. Spring Branch Industrial Park. We have, there was a lot of water and some areas that depending on how the park came together may have to be grappled with. That we have an opportunity right now to purchase some wetland mitigation credits. And those credits can be utilized to work on essentially you underground a stream in a certain portion, and then somewhere else you are creating wetlands, so you have a net zero, and actually might be positive on how they do that, worth of wetlands in the state of Tennessee. So it's a way that you can continue your development with also working on environmental points of this. This potential opportunity, if there's anyone in the future that is going to purchase this, you'll probably need to work on this. Right now in the state of Tennessee, with this influx of infrastructure money, a lot of developers in the state of Tennessee are buying a lot of these credits, wetland mitigation credits, and there's virtually hardly any of them around, and Mr. Berry can talk about that. We have an opportunity to lock these in so that if we decide to use them, that we have them. If we decide not to use them, they are an asset that you can sell for probably the same price or even a higher price potentially. So you're not paying to necessarily do any work, but you're paying for the option of how to work with that. On this, and this is an Industrial Development Board request, so it's not a city staff request, I'm talking about it, and I'm going to come up in a moment, is that the county has, their finance committee has at least agreed to purchase half of these credits, which is about $658,000 worth, and the city would do the other half. And we'd probably use fund balance of some sort to be able to do that. And hopefully, as the original agreement says, we'd be reimbursed some of our costs. And so there's an item on the agenda, and we're happy to answer or address any questions. And if it's all right with you, Mr. Mayor, have Doug Berry answer any questions or add anything to what I'm saying.
Mr. Berry, although you are a local celebrity, if you would please identify yourself for the record.
In my dreams, I believe. But Douglas Berry, I'm Vice President for Economic Development for the Cleveland Bradley Chamber and service staff to the Industrial Development Board. The request you have before you is the culmination of 10 plus years of our activities at Spring Branch Industrial Park. When we first identified the site and compared it to alternate locations, it came back as the most productive opportunity for us, meeting the most criteria that we were looking at. After we acquired the site, we had a period of time between 2012, December 2012 and 2017 when we initiated our improvements package with funding from both the city and the county. We did all of our due diligence and developed a strategy to address sensitive ecological features that the property had, namely Spring Branch and its tributaries. There are 2 flowing tributaries in addition to Spring Branch, which originates off-site somewhere in the vicinity of the landfill and drains a rather large area in that portion of the county, the city. At the time, in 2011 or 2012 through 2014, when we were doing our environmental assessments and archaeological assessments, we developed a plan to do on-site mitigation, primarily because there weren't a lot of credits out there, and at the time, the regulatory environment was open to doing on-site mitigation activities to compensate for areas that you disturb. The area that we're looking to purchase credits for is located specifically on Lot 1 within the industrial park. It's the largest parcel we have, 54.99 acres in the park. There are 200 developable acres in 9 lots in the park, and we have actually sold one to Cannon Automotive, now operating as Cliffs - Cannon Automotive Solutions. And also we have a 13-acre tract. That's roughly a 45-acre parcel, by the way. We have a 13-acre parcel that we're working with a private developer out of Knoxville to do a 100,000 square foot expandable, 150,000 square foot speculative building for industry. This lot enables us to accommodate up to 900,000 square feet of manufacturing space on it and accommodate roughly 600 to 1,000 employees over time, given our experiences with projects. Within that 54-acre parcel were 2 tributaries that are actually, in our original assessment, were defined as wet weather conveyances, drainage ditches, that had minor flows that lasted for less than 3 to 4 days during peak weather events, namely in the spring. At the time, the state indicated that they were comfortable with our on-site mitigation plan. We've moved forward with the development of the park, and we come back to them roughly 8 to 10 years later with specificity on what we need to do on that site, given the projects that we're working with on that site. And the state of Tennessee notified us that at this point in time, that they believe that on-site mitigation would not be a good project for us to take on, and in fact they were discouraging that and indicated that it sometimes takes, it would probably take 2 to 3 years to reach agreement with the state of Tennessee if we made such a proposal. Given the activity that we have and the timing, that turned us towards the purchase of credits. To make a long story a little shorter, we identified credits in the community. It's called the South Mouse Creek Stream and Wetland Mitigation Bank. We made an acquisition with available funds back in the spring of a portion of those funds, of those credits, to cover the stream drainage that is within the pad that we had received a $1 million grant from the state of Tennessee to start grading. We had a reservation originally for all of the credits necessary for those 2 streams, 1,260 linear feet of channel, which the state had defined as a stream channel in our latest round of reviews with them, and that requires the mitigation activity. When we went, at the time, our focus was on getting the pad area ready, and we were waiting for more credits to come to the table, and as those were available in the South Mouse Creek watershed, the Department of Transportation began bidding up the cost and also securing and acquiring all of those remaining credits. That pushed us to an alternate bank that is located in Roane County, and it's known as the Cave Spring Mitigation Bank, where we have a reservation of credits pending funding commitments to complete the acquisition of the remaining credits. As Joe had mentioned, those credits are carried as an asset on the Industrial Development Board's books and financial statements. They do have value in the marketplace. And more importantly, if we are going to maximize the opportunity to develop in Spring Branch, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3 users on that site, we have to do both of these mitigations. I think there's mapping in your packet that shows a large single-user building of about 800,000 square feet. That was the template we used. We currently have projects looking at that site that range between 300,000 square feet and 600,000 square feet. It is actively being evaluated by companies at this time, and we're hopeful that we can find a good fit for the community and transact that property in the very near future.
Mr. Berry, thank you for that very in-depth explanation of the mitigation credits. The 300,000 to 600,000 square foot, can you equate that to the number of jobs that could possibly?
It's real difficult, but in the general rule of thumb that we use is for roughly the potential of a building is about 1 job per 1,000 square feet is a typical standard we would be using.
So 600,000 square feet, 600 jobs.
Yes.
Great. Any questions from the council, from Mr. Berry?
I want to mention to
Councilman
Doug,
Hughes.
when I talked with Doug, I had called him and gleaning some information, and he was flat on his back, had an operation, a serious operation I didn't realize. And you've been missing in action. You're always at our meetings. And I would just like to say we're glad to see you back, and glad you're doing well.
Thank you. Hopefully I walked up to the podium without a limp.
Well, you did
Total
well.
left hit, so I got 2 new, well, 1 old and 1 new hit.
Wow.
Okay.
The
Councilman-
2 replacements.
Councilman Castor, you have a question?
Yeah, Barry, I got several questions. Why do we need to do these credits right now at this time? Is it to join 2 properties together, that you're working on a possibility of a plant coming in, is that correct?
I'm currently negotiating with companies, yes, for that site, and in order for them to develop the site as they've outlined, we would have to have these credits in order to conduct the site preparation.
Okay, so we're gonna move forward and do these credits, and then they can back out, and then we still have these credits, which we're gonna
Which
spend.
we can release back to the marketplace for resale if we don't need them. If we are ever going to develop Lot 1, we have to have these credits.
Yeah, okay. Wetlands, when you do the credits and you take some out, do you have to put some back in like the airport did over at the golf course? Do you have to?
That's the whole purpose.
So
for
where
these.
would that be at then? If you did take these contributaries, where would you put these, or what
We are
county
not,
or city it would go to?
they will go to the Cave Spring Mitigation Bank in Roane County, Tennessee, off of Watts Bar Reservoir. That's what we're purchasing our credits at a bank that is being developed today for this purpose.
Will that cost cover this whole entire
Yes.
project?
Yes, as I said, we've already purchased 1 stream segment, that would be tributary 8 on the plan. It should be in your packet. Tributary 7 is what we're acquiring for the longer channel. And it's in a portion of this 54-acre site that we haven't graded yet.
Yeah, okay. Where's our unemployment rate right now in the city of Cleveland?
Our
Bryan County?
unemployment rate is 3.9%, I think, as of
Okay.
last week.
Rule of thumb, would you say 4% is pretty much the bottom? I mean, 4% of the people don't want to work anyway. I've talked to some human resource people, and that's what they say. So we really don't have
I don't know that I agree
workers.
with
I mean, it's
that
good to
phrase.
say we have workers, but we really don't have the staff. If you walk around Cleveland now, drive around, you'll see where there's a lot of people need workers. I need workers, and I can't get them. So we got 400 coming in over there on Bendix. Then you're talking about 600 or so coming in here.
There
so-
are not 400 coming in on Bendix.
Well, that's what the paper said.
The paper was incorrect.
Okay, I thought it was incorrect because it's a
Paper
warehouse,
was
correct?
incorrect. The information source they got it from was incorrect. It's
Okay.
150 to 200 jobs over the
Okay.
next 3 to 5 years
Okay,
is the only conversation we've had with Ironcraft.
yeah, all right. I don't mind if you got a contract on this and go forward with it, but buying something out when we have needs in our community, we got sidewalk programs. I mean, for $325,000, you could, for sidewalks per square foot with curbing, you can get over 59,000 square feet. I mean, that's a huge impact to our community right now. We got roads, we got 9 points on Paul Huff, we got turn lane on Mouse Creek, we got sidewalks coming down from Bradley, we have new, I mean, Charlie talked about that for a long time. And we're gonna put money into an industrial park, which we need these needs right now. And $325,000, I think will go a long ways in our community to help us move people around. School system has a thing now, they don't have to provide bus services. Hal, let me know if I'm wrong with this, for elementary schools a mile away, you don't have to provide bus services by the state law, correct?
Yeah, it's from 1941.
Yeah, okay. And so we need sidewalk, we need to start moving on sidewalks from elementary schools. I mean, we've got it on the 2nd district, you know, all these sidewalks, and down 20th Street on the 4th district, but there's other districts that needs it too, you know, the 1st district needs it. I can understand if we have a project that somebody's committed to is to help them out, but we're buying something, spending money when we got other needs in our community. Paul Huff, you know, infrastructure, sidewalks. You know you gotta look for the future and the growth, but at the same time, we're behind the 8 ball on a lot of other things. Vice Mayor, you said that.
Oh, yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, so, there's a lot of improvements, but we do have a lot of improvements we need to work on. And it just takes away from those projects that I think it's for public safety and get people around and move things. I think it's inevitable. We need to focus on those things.
I don't disagree with anything you just said. There are many needs, particularly to remain competitive economically and to have the quality of life that attracts new residents, which is actually part of our programming at this point in time.
Yeah.
We do understand the labor market is tight, but that's a national issue, and what the companies are doing are basically looking at the communities that they think have the best plan to address long-term viability of their manufacturing.
Right,
in
that
their
includes
communities.
infrastructure and all that stuff.
It includes everything. In
Yeah.
fact, my public
And we're behind.
presentations to charities and other organizations always says quality of life is equally important.
Councilman Estes, you got a question?
Maybe not a question, just some comments to Doug and then comments to us. On this in the last decade that we've been working together, I've appreciated that the IDB and the Chamber has stuck with manufacturing as an emphasis, not just warehousing. And I know that's a very different kettle of fish that brings better things to us. I am incredibly pleased that the county is going half on this, has agreed to go half. I mean, I think that shows the importance of it. We didn't have any contracts when we bought the Zagsby farm. We didn't have any contracts when we developed it. This is an investment. This is what cities do. This is what we ought to be a part of. I appreciate your effort. I'm going to support this whole, that's all I have.
Any other comments or questions from the council for Mr. Berry?
No.
Councilwoman McKenzie, my apologies.
I understand and kind of agree with Mr. Cassida, the comments he made. But at the same time, I believe that now is the time for Exit 20 to grow. It's set out there for years and years. We have people coming in, industries coming in and looking at that property, and I just feel like that it's a proper time for us to do something with it. If we miss that timing,
Ken, did you?
it could sit there for years and never redevelop. And I'm talking about, I've lived here since I was 10, 11 years old, 60 years. And that property has always sat empty. And I just feel like that now is a good time, while we have industry looking at it, to move on this. And I'm, like Councilman Estes, I'm glad that the county is going half on it. So, and I know we have a lot of other needs. We'll always have a lot of other needs. But it's my understanding that Tennessee is we're in the top 5 of states, the United States, where people are moving to.
Yes.
And so I think, that, and you said that the unemployment is national, it's not just Cleveland, it's not just Tennessee.
It's everywhere.
If we continue having people moving here, then we do need industrial jobs and other types of jobs. And I know there is a problem with unemployment. I know there's people that, businesses that need workers. But we've got to look ahead. And again, I just feel like if we don't do something on this, we could miss our timing.
We're trying to walk a fine line as an organization when it comes to not overstressing the existing business base while we're trying to prepare for our future. There's not a perfect answer. What I can say is that we're trying to bring jobs that have a long-range perspective, or higher wage basis, higher skill sets than we may have historically had within our industry base, and there are many challenges that go along with that initiative. We're not announcing hundreds of projects like some people wish we would. We're trying to very strategically find something that is unique, not duplicated here, that diversifies our economy. And most of the projects I'm working on, if it says that they're going to employ 600, generally speaking, they're talking a 5 to 10 year time frame for hitting those numbers. The projects I'm talking to today are talking in phases, some of them as many as 3 phases that could extend exactly to that 7 to 10 year time frame. So we're doing all we can to respect all the parties involved. There's not an easy or simple answer to any of this. But what the Industrial Development Board does understand is if a company says they want to go to that site and we do not have these credits, the project goes away. Because if you don't hold the credits, you can't do the work to change the channel. And that means that we can lose the best opportunity we have.
Councilman Webb, you have a question?
No,
Comment?
just a comment, Mayor. Having been involved with the development of this park from really day one through my role in Cleveland Utilities, I can just tell my colleagues that now is not the time to be timid in the additional development of that park. Folks may not remember, but that park was initially purchased with $2 million from the city of Cleveland, $2 million from the county, and $2 million from Cleveland Utilities. And although $600,000 is a lot of money, now's not the time to hesitate on it and create any kind of situation that would look like an industry or would look to an industry coming in that we weren't fully committed to finishing the development of that park. That's my comment.
Thank you.
I support this proposal.
Thank you. Mr. Berry, it's been very informative. Thank you. Mr. Fivas, that takes us to the next update on the city manager's report. We are rapidly approaching our 3 o'clock hour.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought that was a good conversation and agreed with all the perspectives. One thing I want to, we've had a conversation about our Greenway and public space camera system. I think we've had a breakthrough in assessing many of the technologies. We had always been of the thought that you would have to run a fiber backbone through there. There's some new technologies that would allow some wireless connectivity to do some things. So we are in the initial steps of coming up with a pilot project on the Greenway cameras. What our goal is to have something as soon as the next meeting, if not, it will be the first meeting in November, on to have the council approve a pilot project. We want to get some of these cameras, get them installed, and see what how well, quality, how well they work. And if they work well, then we can go to the next phase and do something much more comprehensive. And I think that we're pretty excited about that. There's a number of Tennessee communities that have employed this technology, and a lot of the comments we've gotten has been pretty strong. And it doesn't preclude that you can hook up these same cameras with fiber if you get fiber in the future. So that would still be on the table. And we'll go through all the details, and there'll be some decision points that the council can make on what that would look like. But we're very happy with what we found and quite honestly, and Chris Miller's done some fantastic work, and it's really great pricing that we're cutting probably 80% of the cost off of what we thought it would. So, and nothing is for sure until you see everything in writing. But we're very excited about that, of having that ability that you'll be able to sit in a remote location and watch live, a number of cameras that you can be in our parks, it can be on the Greenway, and you can look at it at the same time. And if you see something that isn't right, you can just, 911 can communicate directly with whoever needs to be communicated with. If there's a hazard situation, or whether it's something that looks dangerous, that they can work on that. So all of it comes with rugged packaging, so it can withstand the elements, and I think that it's going to be a good conversation in the next couple meetings. Happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Fivas, I'll just begin by thanking you for that update. I also want to commend Chief Gibson and the CPD for the increased awareness and visibility on the Greenway. I've heard positive comments and grateful comments from citizens about that, and I know that Sunday's editorial from the chairman of the Greenway was thanking the city and CPD for their partnership on keeping the Greenway as safe as we know it has always been. There's been a few incidences, but I think overall it is a safe and wonderful quality of life addition to our city. I'm grateful the city council has been so supportive of it, and I think this is the next level of the city council supporting it, and I'm grateful to hear this update. Any comments or questions from the council? Mr. Fivas?
Thank you, and we can show more details in the future on that. Want to touch on a couple more things. We have a ribbon cutting there's a brand new basketball floor at College Hill Recreation Center. It looks fantastic. We're going to have a brief event so that everyone can see that. There will probably be people in there using it at that time when we have this event. So on the 24th at 11:30, and then we'll go from there to Deer Park, where we'll have the official ribbon cutting for the 17th and the 20th Street sidewalks. Obviously, those are multiple miles long, but I think that's a good location to celebrate those projects, and we'll invite the appropriate the neighborhood representatives along with some of the other agencies that benefit from that incredible sidewalk project. And then on November 14th, Monday, November 14th at noon, we will have the ribbon cutting of the Parker Streetscape dedication. And we'll invite Bradley County Schools were the ones that initially requested us to do some work on the streets over there. I think that in partnership with their request, and certainly we'll invite them and be a part of their high construction. Lee University, who has a big part of that corridor, will be a part of that as well. So those are some upcoming events. Want to take a few minutes, unless anyone has any questions on those events. Anyone? If there's any conflicts, please let us know. I want to take a few minutes and just update you on some things that are going on. Not in great detail, but just to make sure we're all on the same page. Probably as soon as the next meeting, we have a design for all the improvements at Tinsley Park, which will include fixing some of the areas that are a little bit more tired, fixing the parking, which I'm sure everyone's standing up and being very happy about, and adding essentially more parking, and just kind of doing the finishing touches on that on Tinsley Park coming up. And so this area, we have a design that this area would be rehab. It would be more of a plaza area. These pavilions, which are probably 45 years old, 40 years.
Probably 30.
Yeah. So they're going to be rehabbed a little bit, and we'll bring details of what that means. They're actually in decent shape. We just need new roofs and some more painting and maybe some cleaning up some of them. But and so Tinsley Park, next meeting, we'll have a design for you all to look at and have some comments on. What's going on right now is you have phase 1 of the Candies Creek Greenway. Amazing progress has been going on out there. Tommy Myers deserves a lot of credit for getting that project going. You can see, the trail is back there, and as many of us know, that's some of the most beautiful terrain that we have in Bradley County. There you see at the bridge that we have the dedication out there. You see the sidewalk coming in and going out, or the greenway connecting in. A lot of great progress. Any idea when this first phase will be done, Tommy?
Tom, that's yours.
Hopefully by the end of October or something.
All right, end of November. That's what end of November. But things are going well, and a lot of great progress.
There it is.
Here's where the last piece we ended. It is a long way. It's about it's probably over a mile.
2,600 feet, something like that.
So we're see that actual work is going on, and this will be a great amenity for our community. And obviously there's the new bridge that the council was a part of rehabbing that whole thing. And if you remember, I wish we had a before and after picture of how awful this bridge was.
Probably got the historical library, they may have some pictures of that bridge.
I'm sure, I think we have pictures of
Of course, in Buggy.
that. Another
I think
project
it's the
that's
oldest bridge in
ongoing
Bradley
is
County. I
doing
think it
this
is.
Greenway Phase 6 trailhead. There's the liquor store right there. Probably the next couple of weeks in October, this will be paved, and this will be the future trailhead for the Phase 6 Starbucks connector going through on the back there. There was property that was donated to us. We're contractually obligated to construct this, and that's why we're moving forward to get this out there. We hope that any day we get back on track on the Phase 6 Greenway. We're already well into the design phase, and we just need the state to give us thumbs up for that. And certainly if anyone has questions, stop me when I'm going. Mosby Park Playground, here's the new equipment that's out there. We have been slowed down a little bit. Cleveland Utilities is replacing a lot of the lights, and we're on their schedule, and that should be done pretty soon, Jonathan?
Yeah.
And I give a lot of credit to Cleveland Utilities, because they have actually helped us out with a grant. You have a dollar amount?
Not yet.
probably somewhere between $10,000 to $15,000 on helping bring services to this park. So we haven't done anything official, but they came to us and said, hey, we really want to help this neighborhood, and they helped us out with that. The playground is done. The other thing on why it slowed down a little bit is that there's some CDBG money, and they wouldn't let us bid the bandstand pavilion area until they gave us the money in September. So that slowed us down by 2 or 3 weeks. Is that other small pavilion done out there? Yeah, so there's a new small pavilion done out there. You will see probably a lot of activity in October and November. And I think that probably everything should be done in December. And so it's exciting, and that's the new equipment, and encourage people to go out and check that out. This back fence, there'll be fence all the way around it. This chain link fence will be replaced with a nice decorative wood fence that goes around there, protects the church there. And there'll be fence all the way around that with landscaping. Well, there's still quite a bit that needs to be done there. Again, very excited about that potential. Here's another, oh, there's the picture. There's the new pavilion that's out there. And then there's that fence will come down, and there will be some more fence that goes around that. So that look at that as it won't be a cage, but it will be more open, more like a Black Goldfield. And any questions on any park projects? We're working on the different steps for the Jim Sharp Park. We took it to the Planning Commission at the last meeting, working on some of those comments, and working to get our designer in place, and we'll be off and going on that. Civitan Park, which we have purchased equipment for already, and we're trying to find the right timing for Public Works to get out there and do some of it. A lot of great things going on. Transportation projects, very quickly. So 17 sidewalks. Here's a picture of the new wall out there in 17th. That's essentially the sidewalk. Here's the Parker Street. Those trees that you see, the planters will go in the next couple weeks. And then I think Lee University is planning on having banners hanging from these poles, and I think that will accentuate that whole corridor. Dr. Kahn always expressed that he envisioned this as a gateway to Lee University, and so I think that was one of the things that we really wanted to accomplish there, is that once you come on 25th Street, is that truly a gateway to the university. And the Pie Center is fantastic, and they're getting things done. Dalton Pike sidewalks, you see the sidewalks here, grass, sidewalks, probably have another 2 or 3 months left on that project. Again, connecting the South Walmart all the way down to the health department. And then with the Gulf Street sidewalk, you'll be able to go and connect in and go all the way down to Central, and you'll get into the downtown. So essentially from the downtown, and then once we connect in the Greenway, you'll be able to go from Home Depot to the South Walmart on our sidewalk infrastructure. More Dalton Pike sidewalks. LIC North, a lot of conversation, you see connecting that in. And people forget that the TDOT required us to connect this in. This wasn't, this was something that they required to get the money, because it has to be tied into another road project. Making progress, that should be done. When do you think that will be done, Jonathan?
It's supposed to be done, I think their end date is February. I don't know if they're on target, I'll have to ask.
So moving a lot of dirt, different things going on out there. More close-up pictures. Edward Street. I'm going to show you some pictures of what it looks like inside. We are going to organize another opportunity for the council and other stakeholders to go and tour the building when they get a little bit further in. So you see the sidewalk going in and the streetscape. You'll have street trees with decorative lighting coming through here and coming along slowly but surely. What makes this project extremely difficult, it's not a hard project, is that underneath all of our, and many of you know this, underneath a lot of our downtown streets are about 10 inches of field stone with concrete. And it's probably the hardest material that you could ever get through. Is that about right?
Is that the original street?
Yeah, a lot of it was poured in place, mixed on site. Yeah, it's very difficult to go through.
And it's all under there, and we literally probably went through several pieces of equipment.
Fieldstone.
It was a challenge, and so we'll have a monument to all the pieces of equipment we went through on this project. But it will certainly, we're getting close. They should open up probably sometime in November or December. What they're saying, my guess is more January. So here's some more pictures. Enter the street. This is up in the building. So this is a picture of the mill inside some of the locations. So you see the nice efficiency units, well done. You see the materials. Here's the corridors down the hallways. And if you have any idea on what it looked like before they did this, this is a substantial upgrade. Many of you probably didn't know that they have solar on the top of there to reduce energy costs. Who knew? And then you have the HHM building, which is, you can see that they're have the lights on inside and they're working at night. Working on a weekly basis with HHM. There's some utility issues and some other infrastructure issues that we're working on them. We're certainly glad that they're part of our community. They had mentioned, and this isn't for the public, that their business is going extremely well in Cleveland, and now that they are going to completely build out the upper floor and have new accountants in there starting immediately. So that will add to their numbers that they're bringing into the downtown, which is fantastic. Inside the building,
It's unbelievable.
more inside the building. Remember, they rebuilt that floor and the roof.
There was nothing. It's unbelievable.
You can save a building.
So that's my mile a minute update on many things, not all the things that are happening. Any questions on any projects that are on your mind or anything we can answer?
Councilman Hughes, did you have any comments or questions?
The only thing I had a comment on earlier, the LIC North, there was a plot of ground there that we didn't know whether we were going to have to put the money out to refine that ground or the state was going to do it. And it looks like we're doing it.
It's undecided. We decided to give us a little more time, and we're continuing to have conversations with TDOT on those questions. You know, we may ask them to, you know, throw some money on the guardrails or maybe some of the paving, so it looks like if something was done, there's other ways that they can contribute.
Right.
But we want to have an open conversation with them on that.
Right.
But at the end of the day, y'all, we'll bring something to finish off this part of the project, but we're not there quite yet.
Any other comments or questions? Councilman Webb?
Joe, although it's not a project of ours, but another project in our community that seems to be going really well is the Highway 60 project. There's been a tremendous amount of dirt moved out there and some new road bed already in place. Looking forward to the completion of that, but it seems to be going really well.
Yeah, they're quite happy. We went down and had a conversation with the TDOT Region 2 Director. Is that the right term? And we talked a little bit about that, and they're very happy with that, and we inundated them with compliments on how, I think for a big project, that the quality of the timing and how they pulled that project together without impacting the neighborhoods and the flow and the schools has been really amazing for a larger project. And echoing what you, but we shared that directly with them. And they said that they're not slowing down.
We were recently out of town for a number of days, and when we got back, drove down through there, and it was amazing the difference a week and a half made.
Yeah, also, I'll piggyback on that, the project, they got curbing going down through there in front of the church in some areas too, so they've actually put the curbing in, so they're, on that side, they're moving on pretty good. And I appreciate them, I'm sure Hal does too, and what they've done to get the access, temporary access they had when school started, but now they've got a better turn lane. Seems like the traffic flows a little bit better through there now, so I'm anxious to see that project finished so we can move people around in our orderly, safe manner. So.
Yeah, the next big thing that's probably going to happen that you're going to see is the mobilization on Mouse Creek Road and Paul Huff. As I think I mentioned a couple meetings ago, that there was an issue with the utility line, but then there's been some work as far as working with the folks that are contracted to put the mast arms, because we're going to have huge black mast arms out there, and we're trying to figure out exactly, make sure that everything's in line with getting that in the right place with the right depth as far as all those things. I think that probably fairly soon that there'll be a priority. Tommy left. He knew the right time to run. But
He's back.
He's back.
Mouse Creek, Paul Huff, next on the list?
Yes, sir.
Good answer.
But that will probably be one of the things. We have our consultants working on the Michigan Avenue 20th Street project. Probably a number of other things I'm leaving off the list, but that's why we have the next meeting.
And to that point, Mr. Fivas, I'm going to ask my colleagues here on the council, unless there's anything pressing for their reports, that we could move that to the 3 o'clock meeting.
I would ask the consent agenda, one thing be pulled off and put in the business.
And which
is? A, please. I know we voted on our election, but we didn't have open dialogue, and I've got some questions about that.
So your request is to move item A, final passage of ordinance 202234 nightclubs, to new business?
Yes.
So we will move that to new business as, we will keep it as item A. We'll just start with that.
I have a question for Joe.
Certainly, Mr. Hughes, go ahead.
Okay, Joe, there's 2 lots next to our school, Candace Creek out there. Did the city buy one? The city schools buy one?
That's correct.
Is the other one still available? How, do you know?
The 2 lots to the north of our driveway are, we own one of them, but the other one is actually construction going on now.
Is that the Bank of Cleveland that owns that?
No, it's Posey.
Who is it?
Posey Storage.
Oh, Posey Storage. Does he plan to put storage out there?
They've already started the process.
Oh my gosh. Okay. A lot of storage in town.
That's a high-end storage after 60 completion, I can tell you.
Well, with that,
yeah, it's going to be a valuable piece of property.
I'm happy to address any questions anyone has on the agenda. Probably the one that Councilman Cass would be the one that has the most discussion. You do have, between meetings, this is a new draft. The changes from the last time you voted on it is that it changes from 100 people down to 50 people, and that's consistent with our building code. and we've added some additional language on some of the conditions that we can go through, that can be considered. And then we also put a application fee and permit fee in it as well. And we're happy to address any questions when we get to that point of discussion of the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Fivas, for that brief discussion on what is pending before us at 3 o'clock. Again, with the permission and forgiveness of my colleagues on the council, if we could move our council reports to the 3 o'clock, that will at least give us a few moments of a break between meetings.
You're forgiven.
Thank you. There are no other announcements at this time. We will be adjourned until 3 o'clock.